Welcome to the Breaking 90 podcast, where we talk about all things sustainable fat loss. We take people on 90-day journeys to creating fat loss forever. Thanks for listening. I hope you enjoy the episode. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Breaking 90 podcast. I am Alex Jerrika, your host, and I'm here today with my co-host, Jerrika Rydell. We are two of the coaches of Breaking 90 Fitness. Thanks for being here with us, and I hope you enjoy the show. Hey, Jer.
Hey, Alex, what's new?
Nothing crazy. We're back to school now, so getting some of my routine back. And then, as you know, we've got our little puppy Garrett, 5 months old now. So I've been able to get out for a lot more hikes and walks and things like that, which is fun. And he's the first dog I've ever had that can walk off leash in the bush. And it's like the best thing in the world.
It's the best. Yeah, that's where my dog thrives too. It's so fun.
All of my past two dogs could for sure, but it's just like they might listen, they might not listen, and might be a pain to get them back. And Gary just listens so well so far that it's been really great to be able to do that. It's so nice being able to do an off-leash walk.
And like the amount of steps and scents and things that they can do in the bush off leash, it's like, it just tires them out that much better because
Totally.
they're just all over and they're smelling everything. Yeah, there's nothing like a hike in the trails. I've been doing a ton of that too with the dog.
Sweet. Well, it's a good time of year for it too because it's not crazy hot.
Love it.
Okay, so today we did a similar episode a while back talking about progress, specifically why some people succeed when others don't. What I want to talk about today is why some people are, or at least appear to be, ultra motivated. So I think we all know these people, the people that just crush it. They're like they're physical specimen. They always seem to be eating well. They always seem to be training hard, and they're the people that everybody gets pissed off at.
We can all definitely think of one of these people for
yeah,
sure.
yeah. So I want to talk about, and it doesn't even need to be on the extreme example. It could be on a smaller scale too. But why some people are more motivated? Okay.
Cool. Okay.
Do you have any opening thoughts or questions to clarify before we get rolling?
I don't think so. The first thing that comes to my mind is definitely in the people I'm thinking about, it seems like a personality trait or type this starts there for me, like when I think of these people. But I'll take that a different direction after, but it just made me think of that right off the hop.
Okay, that's interesting. I'll be curious to hear
Yeah.
that. Do you think so let me start with this. Do you think people who make it far in pro sports are inherently more motivated?
They'd have to be. I
Do you
feel
think
like.
do you think
Like,
so and I would agree. I think now and I think it changes over time. Like I do believe that
yeah.
motivation comes and goes and we experience it in waves.
And they all would too, for sure.
Absolutely. And
Yeah.
now that they've got their careers and their money on the line, like there's an extra layer of motivation there,
Right.
right? And their legacy and all their name and all of that. Do you think those people were just always extra motivated? And I honestly, I don't have a yes or no answer here. I'm curious to hear what you think.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing. I don't really know because then you look back and you think about, I'm thinking about some of the athletes, and who knows, they could have been just super talented in high school and got picked out and be like, okay, you're going to be a really great athlete. And they're like, oh shit, maybe I should just like try for this. And then they become motivated. Where then I think of other really great athletes, and they've just been pushing hard since they were like 5 years old, and they've loved what they've always done, and they've thrived in it. So I see both spectrums. Like my thoughts can go both directions.
So my belief is that we enjoy what we're good at,
True.
and we're good at the things that we're consistent with. And that kind of all snowballs into momentum, which then in turn creates motivation. That's my belief. Because I think even looking at it from like a child standpoint, like my son Emerson, he likes to try lots of different sports. So he's done gymnastics, he's done soccer, he's done hockey, he's done skating, he's done jiu-jitsu, and he really likes them all in the beginning when they're new and exciting, and then he kind of gets bored and wants to try something different. But I believe that when we try something different over and over and over again, we don't give it enough time to get good at it. And then without getting really good at it, we don't get that motivation to get better, because you're just
True.
like,
Yep.
it's like, yeah, it was fun. And now I've kind of like, I've maxed out what I'm capable of as a beginner, and what's new and exciting, right? Do you agree with that so far?
100%. And then they get to it, but and the next step to become really good requires a lot of work,
Yeah,
which may not always be fun, enjoying, and release those happy hormones. So then we don't. A lot of people just don't stick with it, and that's kind of where I was thinking like a personality type, or people who have a lot of self control, or they can push through those barriers. Like those type of people will get to that point of being really good and not caring of that period of time where it may not be fun and it might not be easy, but they'll work at it, where others are like, oh, let's just move on to the next thing, and that's okay, and that's just who they are, and they might be a little bit more of an easygoing type person.
and there's a different kind of reward, right? Because
Mm-hmm.
beginner advances in sport and athleticism are fast. Like when you first start exercising and you add 20 pounds to your squat, like it feels freaking awesome. You didn't get 20 pounds stronger though. You just got more efficient at the movement, and you're getting
It's
used
more
to the
comfortable.
movement, and now you can lift 20 pounds more. But that feels really good. And you're like, I want to keep squatting. But then you're going to hit that peak where you can't keep adding 20 pounds. You might not even be able to add 5 pounds. You might only be adding 1 pound or less. And
Yeah.
then it's like a different kind of reward has to come in at that point internally to keep you going, because like you're not going to see those big exciting gains every time you step in the gym. And the same thing to me happens from sport. It's like when you win at a casino. Do you ever gamble?
No, I've done like once in my life and thought it was dumb.
Okay. So it's like, to me it's like the same kind of dopamine release where you win on a slot machine or a hand of cards though, and you're like, oh my God, I need to do more. Like that was awesome. I want to do that again. I want to experience that again. It's the same thing when you get to that next level in a sport or in your athleticism. You're like, holy shit, I want to feel that again. That was really cool. But it's harder to get it the more you do it, right? It's almost like an addiction.
What's funny is the first time I ever gambled, I won like $600 off like the first slot machine I sat on. I just never went back and I've never done it again. But that's my personality. I'm just like, oh, this is stupid. But
That's
side note, what you were talking about is that internal motivation. And this is like a note I just written down was it's the difference between having that intrinsic motivation and extrinsic motivation. And I think we need both to maintain or to get the motivation back up at some point. But these people that really can push and stick with it, and is that intrinsic, that internal motivation. There's something that's driving them internally. There's a stimulus that's sparking, whereas the external might be like, oh, I got the trophy, the participation trophy, or the whatever when I'm a kid. And it's like, yeah, this was awesome. I'll do it next summer. But there's no internal love for it. There's no like, it's nothing driving them inside to actually stick with it year after year after year type thing.
totally. And not everybody is ultra competitive. Like I think both you and I are pretty competitive people by nature. But knowing that you are becoming really good at something on a more than just me basis is exciting for some people and not exciting for others. So those beginner gains that you get in sport or weightlifting or exercise, that's you. You're feeling yourself change and adapt and improve quickly. That feels good for you. But then when you start becoming like one of the best in the room, or you start to be able to go compete at a more competitive level, or hold your own against people that you never could hold your own again. That's now you're getting motivated by the people around you. And some people just don't like that competitiveness or want that competitiveness too, right?
Yeah, it makes me think of in like our group, my group training gym. Like I'm in a gym where there's group classes all the time, and it's so interesting to see the ones that do not feed off of others whatsoever. They're here because they like the workouts, they like the people, but there's no competition, or they don't even feel like excited to be working beside someone, even if they're at totally different levels. And then there's others who are like pushing each other, and like there's a
Totally.
lot of, banter, but funny. And they're feeling each other up, and they're like, put an extra 2 pounds on your bar. I put 2 pounds on mine. And it's like a fun competition where you're getting motivated off each other. So it makes me think of those group training classes right away.
For the same reason that most people run their fastest races ever in the actual competition,
For sure.
right?
Yeah,
There's like
definitely.
you've got that competitiveness,
And
that
adrenaline.
you're
Yeah.
laying it out all out on the line. Um, Interesting. So then I guess what I'm trying to bring this back to is, how do we recreate this, right? Knowing that people get really frustrated because they're like, I'm not motivated, I don't feel motivated, and there's other people around me who are always motivated. I would argue that they weren't always motivated, but they've created a level
Right.
of momentum that's made them really good at what they're doing, and being good at what they're doing feels good, and that keeps them motivated and keeps them going.
Or
Because
they've created like a really good system, habit, schedule where it's just they're rolling with what's always worked. And
but that's what I mean, even when I say they're good at it. So like
exactly. Yeah.
when we say they're good at nutrition, like what does that mean? Well, meal preps become easier for them. Getting in their proteins become easier for
Yep.
them. Getting in vegetables has become easier for them because they're good at it. It's part of their routine, part of their habits, part of their day-to-day structure. And so now that they're good at it, they like it, and they have that momentum, and there's not a lot of reason to stop that.
Exactly. Yeah.
Now we see the catalysts all the time of people's downfalls from these levels too. Things like illnesses, injuries, or big family events. This can throw anybody off of their course, and it can, depending on the level of what this is, can completely change your life for a period of time, can make it very hard to get back there. We see that happen to high level athletes, we see it happen to the average Joe. And so those are the things on bigger and smaller scales that will often take a hit on your motivation. But if we know this, and we know that this is the steps to recreate motivation: action first, consistent action, which creates momentum that makes you good at something. And once you're good at it, then you're excited to do it more, and you have more motivation tied to it. Then we can start to kind of recreate that whole process over and over again, knowing that at some point in my life, I'm going to get another curveball thrown at me. Guaranteed. Every one of us is, right?
Absolutely.
Um, and so circling back to the original question, why do some people seem more motivated, or are some people more motivated? I think the answer is yes, but it also just comes from a different place in their life. I imagine at some point they were also that beginner, right?
Right. And you might just be at one of your lower points, and so that's nearby, or you're looking at or seeing on social media might be one of their higher motivations. And
Totally.
you're like, they're always, or it's just, these people that seem always motivated are the ones that are just posting the highs of their day. Right. And
Oh,
so it's
that
affecting
too.
you differently.
That
But
too.
yeah, yeah, which happens a lot. This is just an example that I use for myself when I'm in like different periods of motivation. When I'm in those low periods, I mentioned at the beginning that extrinsic and intrinsic motivation. And when I'm in a low period of motivation, I'm struggling to kind of get things going again. And this is more for like, let's talk about fitness or nutrition, like health related. I use extrinsic motivation. So to get me out of a short term slump, I want to just, get a quick win, a quick high just to get me out of that. I look for something that's going to extrinsically motivate me. So for me, that's going to a group training class. That's going to something somewhat competitive that I can, laugh, joke, but also push myself and feed off of others. So then I know this week I'm not going into my basement to lift. I'm going to a class every day to kind of get me out of that. And then when I mean, once the short term kind of starts to fall, because that's just kind of gets me up and out of it, I have to be like, okay, what's going to keep me out of it, or what's going to keep me in this higher period for a little bit longer. So that's where I start digging into the intrinsic motivation, like what's actually driving me. Why do I want this? Do I have a long-term goal of a race? Do I have a fat loss goal? Like, it's trying to dig deep into those reasons too. And that's where we tell our clients, put those things on the mirror as soon as you wake up, like those driving forces that can kind of keep reminding you. But I love to use the short-term things to just kind of kick me out of it and then search for the long-term reason.
I like that. I like that. And if you're listening to this and just like Jerrika and I said, we obviously know these people who always seem motivated. Compare those people to professional athletes, right? They at some point in their life went through the struggles you're going through, and now they've created these habits and they've gotten so freaking good at doing what they're doing, good at eating, good at exercising consistently, that it isn't as much of a chore for them. And so they're in a really good place. That doesn't mean that a significant event won't throw them off. And I guarantee if you ask them, they also have low periods of motivation, but their low period of motivation might not be as hard as your low period of motivation. But at one point they were there. And so we have to remember that, and we have to really avoid that comparison syndrome, because you're comparing yourself to somebody who really is like essentially a competitive athlete at eating well and training regularly. Like that's not average, but it is achievable, and I truthfully believe that it's achievable just through consistent action at first to build that momentum. I think that's the biggest stepping stone towards motivation, is just taking action consistently towards your goal, no matter how small that action is.
Awesome. And when you were talking, I just thought of something that's worth mentioning is these, if you're sitting there comparing yourself to someone who is, like you mentioned, a really great athlete, and we're talking about how they've struggled at some point in their life, they're also really good at turning failure, like fueling themselves off failure, right? Because they've failed many times, just like we have in different aspects of our life. But if they're specific to one sport, you have to fail so many times to get better at whatever it is said sport. So learning how to use sometimes some of these low periods to rise us back up is definitely a skill, and something that takes a lot of time to transform and change our mindset, but it has a lot to do with it as well.
I know I reference him all the time, but have you read either of David Goggins' books?
I read the first one, not the newest one.
So in this, I believe it's in the second one, I listened to the audiobook. He talks about all of the shit people talked about him. He took it and he like recorded himself saying it back to him, and then he made it into like a mixtape and he used it. It was like his
He's listened
motivation
to it.
album. Yeah, like he listened to all the negative shit people said about him and all the stuff that people said he couldn't do, because he's exactly like you're saying. He loves that fuels him to achieve it, to get to the next level.
And you have to figure out what fuels you, right? Everyone's going to be different. That's what we kind of mentioned time and time again today. But yeah, and for him, that's impressive.
Yeah.
I don't think I'd want to listen to those thoughts as
No,
I'm running a
and
marathon, but
he's obviously like the most extreme
yeah, he's
example.
extreme, an
I wouldn't
extremist.
suggest that for the average person, but I just thought it was really interesting.
Yeah, exactly.
Um, cool. Did we cover everything you wanted to cover on that?
Yeah, I feel like I was all over the place, but it's kind of what this podcast was about, which I love.
No, it's good. It's good because I hear people talk about it all the time, and I think it's we just need to like normalize the fact that motivation is within reach, but we can't just sit there waiting for it to come, because it doesn't. We have to take consistent action in order to build momentum, in order to find motivation, and that's where it all starts. And it's something that anybody is capable of achieving. Okay, so on that note, my closing tip today is to start stacking as many of these like daily tasks, habits, and goals as possible to make it easier on yourself. Because when we look at getting our health and fitness in order, there's a lot of little things we need to focus on: drinking water, getting outside, meditating, walking, eating better, exercising regularly, still want to spend time with your family. So many of these things can be stacked together. And I know I've talked about this lots in the past, but just as an example, grab your bottle of water and a healthy snack and take your dog and your kids for a walk. You're getting outdoor time, dog's getting a walk, kids are getting exercise, you're having family time, you're having a healthy snack, and you're hydrating all at once. And that's like you're knocking off all these boxes rather than putting out this list and be like, okay, now I got to go exercise. Then I have to take the dog for a walk. Then I need to do some family time. Anytime we have an opportunity to do this and in the busy lives we all lead, we need to take those opportunities. And that's not something that it's always going to be possible, but if we have the ability to do it with one or two things a day, it's going to leave you feeling a little bit lighter, a little bit less stressed trying to get all of these tiny little tasks completed.
And I think just that stress that's tied to needing to do all these tasks affects our motivation as well. It's like, oh, well, I can't do it.
Yeah.
And then that, that keeps adding on, adding on, adding on. Our motivation is just low because we haven't done any of them in weeks. And so, yeah, finding little habits or sorry, little tips and tricks like that to be able to tackle all those things and feel a little bit more ease to our day will not only help that, but will help your motivation as well.
Love it. Love it. Well, thanks for listening, guys. Hope you found it helpful. Wherever you are listening right now, take a screenshot, share it to Instagram, and tag us so we can see you watching it. We appreciate that and getting the word out there about what we're doing here so more people can listen into.
Awesome.